Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Hey everyone.
Hiya.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Oh,
Hi.
Hey there, everybody.
Hi.
So I think today we have two items on the agenda. OpenEBS are going to be giving us an update on their new sandbox proposal and give us an update as to a variety of the changes that they've been making recently to the project, which is great. And then I think Jing Leonardo is going to give us an update of snapshots.
They have agreed to move that meeting to August 28th. So this way they have more time to have Q&As. Otherwise, we have two things in one meeting would be a little jammed.
Great. All right. That's
Yeah.
fine. So I think we should be good to go. So I guess Ed, it's over to you.
Yeah, sure. Just give me a second. I'm just gonna share my screen here. Alex, the presentation that the team and I have put together, I think I sent that to you in a link. Oh, you know what? I'll put it into the chat so everyone can keep a copy or whatever you want to do with it. So yeah, hi everyone. So my name's Ed Robinson. I'm joined with a few other folks from the OpenEBS team, and some of them are still joining. So I'll introduce you to them as they arrive. And so at least on the call at the moment, we've got Dave Brace. We've got Niladri and Abhinandan, who are engineers on the project. Vishnu and Tiago. Tiago's joined us. Vishnu will be Tiago's an architect. Vishnu is the head of engineering for OpenEBS, and Dave does product management. We're all Datacore employees except for Dave. Dave's not a Datacore employee, and Datacore is the main sponsor of the project. We don't want it to always be that way, but it is right now. So the focus of this presentation, so I also just wanted to say, look, this is the first time that OpenEBS has presented to Tag Storage for quite some time. We do want this to be more regular because we're going to need help, and we want to reach out and get expertise, to get advice. I mean, you guys help you guys are there for storage products. We're a storage product to help them get through to incubation and through to graduation. And so we want to do that as well. So I apologize that we haven't talked to you for a while. We want to change that. And the focus of this presentation here is about change. And it's about, in February this year, OpenEBS was archived from Sandbox to archive by the TOC. When that happened, we had a choice. We could just walk away from the project or try to argue it or do something else. Instead, we talked internally and we talked to the CEO of the sponsoring company, Datacore, and said, we see value in continuing. We see value in saying, let's make the change. Let's listen. Let's make the changes TOC has given us, and let's swallow our pride. Let's improve the project, and then let's march forward back into Sandbox, then into incubation, and then into graduation. So the focus of this presentation is mainly about those improvements that we've done. The thing which I'm looking for from Tag Storage is, have we missed anything? Or is it, what? For us going into Sandbox, is there anything that you would recommend that's important that we are missing, or that we need to change, or need to listen to? And then after we do get back into Sandbox, we're going to come back again and say, right, it's time for this project. This project's been around for like 7 years. It's time for us to do everything that we need to do to get it to go to incubation and graduation. So we're going to come back and talk to you talk to you about that.
Okay,
Sorry.
sounds good.
So that's the agenda. Look, I'm not going to spend any time on this. I'm going to pass over to Dave Brace just to give everyone just that 101 recap on. By the way, I'm sharing my screen. Can everyone see the presentation? Okay.
Yeah, I see it. Yep.
Cool. Okay, Dave, over to you.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Dave Brace. Based out in San Francisco in Silicon Valley here. Been last 3 years Data Core employee. I just recently moved to an AI ML company here in San Francisco. So I've been doing all the product management, product strategy for OpenEBS for the last 3 years. OpenEBS is an elastic block storage system. So that's the EBS part of our name. Very focused obviously on Kubernetes, but specifically for us, we are enterprise focused. We're almost exclusively focused on bringing all enterprise storage capabilities to Kubernetes, right? The sponsoring company Datacore is known as an enterprise storage company. It has over 20 years with enterprise storage, intellectual property, excellence, expertise, and we bring that focus to Kubernetes storage platforms, data management. Obviously, stateful persistence is the core of the product as well for Kubernetes storage. So it's really all about resilience, availability, performance, all the types of enterprise grade capabilities you might see in a platform like, you know, an EMC DAO platform or a Pure Storage platform or a NetApp platform that customers that are deploying Kubernetes get in their normal enterprise storage. We're trying to bring that natively to Kubernetes. So that's specifically our core of our focus is really around enterprise. There are a couple of other projects in Kubernetes storage landscape that we may mention in this presentation that don't have the enterprise first focus. So we think that we're complementary in that we sit in a space where there's less overlap. So we're enterprise, there's sort of simplicity or other focuses. Our project is historically has had a lot of engines, and we're going to talk about this in the next slide. And in this iteration, where we're coming back into from archive to sandbox, we have rationalized significantly the project down to 5 core engines. 5 may sound like a lot, but when you historically look at the project, there was a lot more than 5. And 5, you know, we did a lot of work. Ed will talk about that work in the other slides. We're now down to 5, and we've vetted that with our community. It's been a painful process. We've wanted to do this for a number of years, but it was always going to be a very painful process to move some of those engines out, end of life them, archive them, put them into our archive repo that Chris Anacek and Jorge set up with us. 4 of those 5 now are what we call local PV type engines, and 1 is an enterprise replicated engine, and that's how our roadmap and our entire project is now distilled down and focused on that core vision. Next slide, Ed.
Hey, just a quick question. How do you define enterprise storage, especially in terms of sort of comparing against the other CNCF projects?
Yeah, so we, I mean, any of the other team members can contribute in on this conversation, but you know, for us, enterprise is all about resilience, availability, these features that you might see in a system like a NetApp system, like snapshots, STIM provisioning, deduplication, replication, for example, redundancy, integration with points with other enterprise services like data protection, archive, long-term retention, and being able to talk to those systems and those platforms, you know, like Veeam or Veritas, those types of things. Those types of features, you know, snapshots, streaming snapshots, the type of stuff that you might get in that companies that customers are used to, say some big bank like Bank of America or so, for example. That's kind of where they build their entire set of storage features, storage services around those types of capabilities that you generally don't get for free, and they're very complicated to build and have lots of complicated configuration options. We look at those use cases and those feature sets and try to to bring that capability to the product and to Kubernetes. You don't get those capabilities in Kubernetes by default. That's Niladri, Vishnu, Tiago, is if you want to add anything else to it, to that. But that's how I think about enterprise.
Yeah, no, that wasn't the question though. So, sorry, just to be clear.
No.
I kind of get what enterprise storage is, but what I was sort of suggesting was like, how do you see that as a comparison between you and as an OpenEBS versus, I don't know, say Longhorn or Ceph or the other things which are in there? Like, do you currently have, you know, and some of those type of features that you mentioned, which the others are not looking at, or like,
yeah, we tried it. Sorry,
you know, all of the projects today, especially for incubated or graduated projects, you know, have some have production users and are available and you know, replicated and like all of those kind of things. So I'm kind of just wondering what specifically you're seeing as the difference, since you're pointing it out as a difference compared to the other products. Like what would be the top 3 things that you would put in that category that are differentiators for you?
Yeah, so a good example would be that you know, we recently spoke to one of the largest mobile gaming companies, right? They're based in Israel, and they specifically are building 3 very large 1,000+ node Kubernetes clusters to re-architect their entire infrastructure for mobile gaming. And they specifically, for them, their number 1 feature was the ability to for if a node dies, that all of the storage services will just come up magically somewhere else on some other node, right? And all the reservations will be released on the dying node, and will come up and just start up magically on whatever node that they need to come up on within the Kubernetes cluster. And that doesn't naturally happen in Kubernetes. You know, but
sorry to be picky. I do get what you mean, and like I don't mean to.
I get it. Yeah.
But like,
I'm just saying.
But all of the other projects do that too. Like, that's not a differentiator. So I'm just kind of trying to suggest, like, if you're saying you're targeting enterprise storage, and the other projects are not, then you kind of need to say what that enterprise storage means that the other.
So Alex,
my example was there that we discovered that Longhorn doesn't do that feature. We didn't do that feature either. In fact, the only project that we found, and the customers told us that the only Kubernetes storage platform that they found was a non-CNCF project, which was Portworx. And for them, it was. Yeah.
Dave, do you mind if I just take this? I think he's asking a slightly different slightly different question. So Alex, Longhorn is a really special, valuable project, and the one thing that they really do that we don't do is that they're aimed at simplicity. And I think their tagline, or one of their taglines, is with 1 line of code, you've got persistent storage inside Kubernetes. So I see that as their differentiator, and we've got a ton of users. They've got a ton of users that's definitely a really powerful thing that they've got. So that's that kind of high level differentiator. For us, we're not trying to be the simplest product at all. Maybe we should, but that we're not trying to. We're trying to. We're consciously, as Dave was saying, we're consciously adding all of the enterprise capabilities that people would that a Fortune 500 or a Global 2000 would see in commercial products into our system. Dave was referencing there one of this. I prefer that we don't actually discuss it during this call. But like, one of the things that, just because we'll go into great depth, but one of the things that we are looking quite heavily at the moment is pure resiliency, or I call it like
Self-healing.
self-healing, self-healing capabilities in there, and that's kind of things that you would see like in a NetApp offering or some offering for in the commercial world. We want to do the heavy lifting required to add that into Kubernetes, but we're certainly not going to be the easiest to use like Longhorn is. So I think
Okay.
there's a natural place in the ecosystem for Longhorn versus us as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
And my point there Ed, was that each enterprise user that we speak to, they have their own set of what they think is the number one and number two enterprise feature, and that's not a set of, that's not 3 features. That's like 3 for each user, right? And so we get this. And when we look competitively at Longhorn or whatever, we see that actually Longhorn doesn't do that feature like we didn't do it, and they simply didn't do that, and that this particular enterprise customer could not deploy Longhorn or us, and they had to go outside of CNC projects.
So Dave, I'm just going to bring back. So I don't see us as being. I see us as being complementary to Longhorn. Like there is a certain sense that people would choose one or the other, but both of us perform a different usefulness. And
Sure.
yeah.
Cool.
Dave, do you want to really quickly? Do you guys want to know about the different? Like, there's often been some questions of why do you have 5 different engines inside the project? Do you want us to go just quickly through that for you all? Dave, do you want to maybe?
Yeah, I'll take this. So we rationalized the project down to these 5 engines. These are the only 5 engines now in the entire project: HostPath, ZFS, LVM, Rawfile, and Firestore. 4 of them are what we call locals. They're obviously node local, replicate, and the last one is replicated, where storage is replicated throughout the cluster. They each have a different target. The ZFS and the LVMs are targeted as providing specific backing data volume management capabilities to users that have a religious affliction to a particular technology stack. So that's why we get a lot of feature requests for each one of these specific technologies. HostPath and Rawfile are very similar, just local HostPath CSI providers. And then Firestore is the high performance NVMe with RDMA replicated engine. And we get lots of user activity in each one of these specific engines. Our overall goal, our long-term vision, we aspire to make to rationalize this down to what we call the unified storage engine. It would be awesome. We love for this to be one. We looked at this to be very complicated to do. We understand how technically complicated that will be. We think that we could get it down to 2, and that would be local and replicated. So you might get the 4 locals distilled down into one, and then the Firestore replicated would be another one. So we got a path to unified, which is 2, and hopefully 1 by the time we get through incubation and graduation.
I have a question. I remember last time when we met, I remember those other engines are not really actively being used. I thought at that time, at least, I thought you were not planning to add new features and just maintaining. So it sounds like that's changed.
Yeah. So historically.
So Dave, just before you answer that question, sorry, was that Ching? Was that Ching who said that?
Yes, that's me. Yeah.
So which when you said last time we talked, can you tell?
Was at the Cube when we
at the KubeCon?
KubeCon, right?
So you're referring back to November. Was it November?
Chicago.
Right.
Chicago,
there were that was the issue, right? Saying there are a lot of repos kind of stale and there's not much activity. We talked about, hey, maybe we need to separate them. Some of the repos.
Yeah, I mean, I just echoing what Jing was saying there, one of the main reasons why the project was archived was because there were a bunch of engines, including these 4, that didn't really have a roadmap or weren't getting sort of committed updates. So kind of has that changed?
Yeah, so
Yes,
Dave, let's move on to that. If you're okay,
yeah,
we can move.
however you want to run this.
Cover that archiving process and the future of it. Hey, but before we do, Dave, so Gabrielle has got a question. Which one of these engines would you recommend for a production database workload like Postgres, where state synchronization happens on the database level?
Sure. So in that case, I mean, for me, if I was asked that question, we actually see this a lot, and a lot of those users, they tend to choose between influence. There's a choice between ZFS and LVM and how they want to manage the backend data. If they want higher level storage management capabilities, some of them might choose ZFS because you get a lot more modern features. Others want the LVM engine because it's much more, it's a higher performing engine with low overhead and more stable in the Linux kernel. Some other implementers, some other users just want local host path. They want no volume capability, and they defer it all up into the database. So that's generally the choice path, the process.
Does that make sense,
Thank
Gabrielle?
you. Yep,
Okay, cool.
thank you. Then I look it up which ones maybe have volume snapshots and so on.
Yeah, so you get different capabilities of snapshots
Okay.
and LVM and volume aggregation and just that sort of stuff between these.
Okay, thank you.
If Gabrielle just wanted to use it, Dave, would you point him towards, which one would you point him towards?
I mean, if you just wanted to spin up, a cluster with some stateful persistent capabilities, not doing nothing fancy, no replication, no volume management, you probably do host path. You might do raw file if you want to. Some of the other capabilities, raw file addresses some of the issues in the standard sort of Kubernetes host path. That,
Yeah,
that's the simplest way to get started, and then you think about what you want to do with your management, your thin provisioning, your snapshots, your dedupe, all that sort of stuff.
that's clear. Yeah, I'll reach out to you if you don't mind, privately.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then we could talk about the other engines. There are other engines that we have moved to the archive that and Ed will show and talk about. These are the ones that are getting all of the activity currently right now and are covered in the roadmap.
Thank you, Dave. So Alex and Chang, I want to come back to that question and just I want to set the scene and come and just address that in 2 minutes time. So first of all, this OpenEBS started in 2017. So we've got 7 years experience of scar tissue of dealing with storage and Kubernetes, and stuff's pretty robust. But in case people don't know, a company called Myadata based in Bangalore created OpenEBS 2017, donated at Sandbox 2019. Datacore, who is my employer and is a primary sponsor of the company, of the project, they acquired Myadata and continued like 15 or 20 engineers working on OpenEBS. One of the challenges was for Datacore is that they didn't really, because the company hadn't gone through that process of finding out about CNCF and donating the project to CNCF and working right from the beginning, it's through no fault of the people inside Datacore, they just didn't understand all of the rules, the conventions, the rules, and everything else. And credit to the CEO and to the executive leadership team that they're trying. They're not perfect yet, but trying, honestly making an effort to try to do the right thing. So where we are right now is we've been archived in February, and we're hoping August or September to be accepted back to Sandbox. And at that point there, we say, right, Sandbox is it doesn't deliver Kubernetes. Being in Sandbox delivers some value for people in the enterprises and people in the community, but definitely going through that rigor of moving it to incubation and to graduation is where we want to be. Just to answer your questions around the engines. So if I look at those major issues why the project was archived, and I want to talk through just what we've done on each one of these ones here, but I'll start on the legacy engines. So one of the challenges, which I'm highlighting here, one of the things that we're pinged on is whether the project was active, whether people were actively working on it. And there was, okay, I might get the numbers slightly wrong by about 1 or 2. We had about 75 projects in OpenEBS. So it was like an umbrella with a ton of different projects. And some of those we had a few users of, or like 1,000 users maybe, but we weren't actively working on it. And so you could say it was stale or it wasn't worked on. Or you could say, well, it's still delivering value to people. I'm not sure what the answer is, but we went through and identified we did a process where we said any engine that we have in the project, we have to, number one, have up-to-date documentation. We have to be committed to having a roadmap for it and to evolving that. And we have to have the abilities to support that engine as well. So if we're not willing to do that, then that has to go into the archive, because we can't do everything. You can't say yes to everything. So we archived about 2/3 of the OpenEBS project. When I say archive, we put it into an organization called, well, the CNC have set up for us a OpenEBS archive organization. We moved the projects into there. We did our best to make sure the Helm charts still work and that you can still install them for people who do use them. And then those things will not be evolved unless there is a thing in the README that people can actually ask to have things. There is a way that they can pull them out of archive, but most people just want to use our stuff as opposed to having to do deep technology on it. So that's what we did there. So these 5 engines that you see, so Ching and Alex, these 5 engines are the ones that we're going to actively move forward. The Maya store has got the most effort from Datacore engineers. We're not great at it yet, but we want to have more community involvement, and especially in the locals, because they're simpler. And so Rawfile is one of the engines that we've got that's a completely community-driven project. And we're working for that sub-project special maintainer. We're working to help them kind of lift it up to the standard that the entire project has to be. So we're working on this, but we are especially trying to get that community involvement. And we do recognize that those 5 engines have to meet the standard in order for them to be inside OpenEBS. Does that hopefully that makes sense?
Yeah, no, it does. So if we go back to slide 4 for a second, if I was to sort of summarize it in my own words, just to make sure I'm getting the right understanding here. So effectively, there were other engines like the Gvan C store and things like that, which were kind of put on pause and they were put into the archive. And the focus is on Maya store for all replicated stuff, together with a handful of the local engines for local storage use cases. And you're now going to be putting in the sort of the roadmap and support and treating them as like a first-class project like Maya store, basically.
Yeah, these are all first class, Alex. Speaking very honestly, right? In the past, we didn't give these local engines the attention that we should have been giving them, and now each one of these engines has an engineering owner and a support team, and then we have there have to be a dedication to every single day. We review the issues, we respond to issues, we raise PRs. That honestly didn't happen previously for these 4 locals. Most of that effort happened with Maya store, and now our requirement across the team is that these are all for the first class citizens. We've tons and tons of issues that we're dealing with for all of these now. Very active, much more active than previously. That's the change, and I'm sorry that wasn't clear when I presented this, but that is the big. These engines now are all equal first class citizens.
That's brilliant. Okay. I did have one last question about the ZFS engine. We had previously had a number of discussions around the user level ZFS code, which had a bunch of GPL, because there were like extracts from the sort of Oracle ZFS code there. And in order to have the project as part of the CNCF, some of that ZFS code was taken out into an external library because it was GPL'd, but that kind of meant that the project itself wasn't entirely useful without the codes that wasn't being donated. So I'm kind of just wondering, what's the situation there? Has any of that been resolved, or is that still the same problem?
Hi. Okay, sure. Go ahead, Vishnu.
Sure. Yeah. Let me state on this. So you're right, Alex. So the concerns were mainly with the CStore engine, because that was using the OpenZFS in the user space. So we have done the required changes in order to separate those bits which are kind of licensed, right, on the ZFS side. But this ZFS local PV engine that we are having here, so one of the prerequisites is user manages the ZFS stack. So what we do is we just enable the local PV volumes on top of that.
I see. So you're just using ZFS that's local on that machine, effectively.
Yes, that's right.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, just looking at the time, shall I move on, or do you want to ask some more questions around the engines, Alex, or anyone else?
I'm good for now. But by the way, we do have the full hour, so if you need extra time, like, we don't have to stick to the 30 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, whatever you guys however want to do it. Okay. And you know, I think we, as Dave Brace said before, there are 4 of those local engines. We want to be able to pull them back to like we call it a unified local. We're not sure yet if that's possible to do. Like, anything's possible, but whether it would take just too much time and be too disruptive. And we know that our project is used in many kind of production systems, and so things like that can be very, very disruptive. Okay, so the legacy. Sorry, Dave, you go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, and Tiago might want to weigh in here as the chief architect, is that we've looked at the problem of unifying the entire stack down to one engine. We realize that's very complicated because of the differences between the lower level stacks, ZFS and LVM and the such and the locals. We don't, we think that's a long-term roadmap, and we have very detailed thoughts about that and sort of road mapping that out. We think that we can actually unify the locals into one stack. That's kind of our shorter term, near term roadmap. That's our long-term aspiration is one unified, but we currently are thinking that it's going to look like it'd be a step towards 2 first. And if Tiago wants to chime in about that, but it's just so complicated to
yeah.
So
one of the main problems is the different requirements for the different engines, especially for Mayastar, which is the replicator one. If we were to kind of not restrict, but request all the users of OpenEBS to have the same requirements as Mayastar, and no way of turning that off,
yeah,
then I think that would affect a lot of the users which want simple deployment. They only have a few nodes. So, probably doesn't make sense to ship another etcd and etc. So then we looked at, well, can we then combine the 3 locals into 4 locals into a single one? And that kind of makes sense. host path at the moment is non-CSI, for example. So we were also looking into moving that to CSI. So if we are writing a new CSI driver, why not think about migrating the other locals into a single one? So that's kind of the line of thinking that we're having. But the replicated one is probably, it will add probably too much complexity for most people. So it might be better to keep that separate.
Can I suggest, so Alex, as you can hear, we are thinking about these things, like, and we are, so we might, so maybe I suggest that we do that like another meeting. We could talk through it more or something.
But just to be clear, I don't think the CNCF or anybody here has a particular opinion on how you structure your engines. I'll be honest, you know, it's more about the fact that the engines need to be maintained and have a roadmap, and
Yeah.
you know, if that's the case, then whether there's 1, 2, or 5 or whatever, it doesn't really make that much difference as long as there's a clear, you know, plan
Yeah,
for them.
Yep,
That's what
and
we
the
said.
good thing is that in this new version, this new sort of persona of the project, we now are asking the community of those and the bulk users of those 4 local engines, do you want, you know, we're requesting feedback from them, community engagement from them. Do you want a unified? Whereas in the past, we weren't anywhere near as good as doing that. So we're much more engaged around getting feedback and asking their contribution on roadmap and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of say that, you know, at a certain point, it just becomes a strain on your team if you're developing a roadmap for 4 different
Yeah.
engines. You know, because
Yeah.
every
It's-
feature
it-
that you add, you have to think of it 4 different ways, you know. So
Okay, let's look at
It's,
some of the other. Let's look at some of the other things if it's all right. If it's okay, I'll move that one forward, if it's all right with everyone.
yeah.
Look, if I look at kind of the major reasons why OpenEBS got archived back in February. So the legacy engines and projects, that's the one that we've talked about here. There's the non-communication with CNCF. So what we did, I was very aware, I think we're all very aware that the OpenEBS project had been, there was a perception that if we got pinged on things in the past, we would do a flurry of activity and then not really do anything after that. So we're trying to make a sustained effort to be more of a part of the CNCF community. This is the first time that we talked to Tech Storage for a while, but I do want us to be able to meet with you guys, with us all regularly. We also engage, I communicate with people in either the Linux Foundation or TOC every week. I've joined Tag CS to help out there. So we are doing everything that we can to try to carve out some time to both utilize so we want to be a good community member. The governance side of it, we were recognized as not following our own governance. So we went back and spent probably, that's the first thing we did, is went back and we rewrote our vision, our governance, our contributor docs. We synced them across all the, we did everything to bring the governance compliance up to date. And again, that's not perfect yet, but it's a lot better than it was before, including some interesting graphics in there. When I say interesting, like pixel art graphics. We've brought all the docs up to date. I don't think the docs are there. Actually, you know, if your project should never feel like it's finished. So we know that we need more work on that, lots of different areas. We've reduced our issue lists down to 7 that we're actively monitoring. We have more work to do to get contributors in. At the moment, Datacore is still the biggest contributor to the project. I've talked, so I report to the Datacore CEO, and I've talked with that person, and they recognize that in order for OpenEBS to be successful, Datacore should not control it. Sponsoring company does not control the project, and we needs to have more community involvement. And I really want to stress the CEO understands that it still is a work in progress to make that happen and to make that successful. And it's not something we can just turn around overnight. But there is an understanding that this is the way that things have to be. You know, again, we've got work to do, but we understand the path forward. One thing which was raised in the meeting that initiated our archiving vote was we had planned to name Datacore was planning to do a commercial product and name that product OpenEBS Pro, and that was seen as being potentially a trademark conflict. I've talked with the Chief Brand Counsel twice from the Linux Foundation, and that would have been a conflict. We are going to name the any commercial product or any commercial offerings something completely different. And I can't tell you what the name is yet because it hasn't been decided, but it will not be. It'll be following the guidelines, and I will. It's hard to get time with the Brand Council from Linux Foundation, but I will try to get time to just to make them totally clear and get our freedom to operate there. So again, not perfect, but really honestly, genuinely trying to make an effort. Any questions about this from people?
No, just a small comment that it looks like you've done a lot of hard work, and it's I think the community and the product and the team will be better off for it.
We have quite a few angry people too, Alex, like because of doing yeah.
I mean, it's a major change. The governance work that we have done has been months and months of our maintainers team figuring out how to be really good citizens in CNCF and get our governance so that we can actually execute according to that. It's incredible amount of heavy lifting work that we honestly, none of us realized that it was that it's that serious.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna move forward now.
But I just want to reinforce the point. It should be commended. Like the amount of work that's gone into this is non-trivial.
Thank you, Alex, and it's really
Thank you. Yeah.
It's all of the project team. Just very aware, we've got 15 minutes max left. I want to talk through current status, community contribution, and roadmap. This is our adoption numbers at the moment. I want to talk through this methodology here as well. This belongs to projects, so it's public information, but at the moment it still takes a bit of effort to bring it out. We're using a Google Analytics engine, capturing events and putting those events into it. So at some point, as soon as possible, we'll have this on our README or something inside GitHub, but at the moment we can't do it. So I can't tell you how many people have an OpenEBS engine installed, because the reason for that is that we were using an older GA3 Google Analytics GA3 event capturing engine. Then that got end of life.
Google end of life did, yeah.
So we had to rewrite it, and so we turned it on kind of around December 20. There's a new GA4 engine. So our installation counts start from like December 20. So anyone who installed OpenEBS last year, you know, January, February, March last year or the year before, any of the previous 6 years, they're not counted in here. This is just unique people, unique clusters using OpenEBS since like December 20, or I'd say January 1 this year. So this is what our numbers look like. So we're filtering out multiple things happening. It's filtered as got a unique primary key of the cluster ID, and our growth's pretty linear. It's around anywhere from like 20,000 to 30,000 clusters are installed each month. New clusters are installed each month. We are underreporting Firestore. We are underreporting HostPath as well. And so we have started some improvements for that.
So the raw
So-
file actually is not used as much, so it's not showing here.
Sorry, what
There
was
is
that,
another
Shane?
engine raw file that's not showing here.
Yes, correct.
That's
Yes.
Not,
Yes.
not
Raw
used as
file-
much.
Raw file doesn't have the analytics built into it.
Oh.
So that's the reason for that is it's written in Python, and it's a true
Well,
community, like
Yeah, it's
not a
fully community developed, and it's developed completely by a community, and they didn't know to ask us to share with them the Google Analytics telemetry engine that the other engines have. So we've made that a requirement in the raw file product going forward, and so we're porting that to raw file. But it's based on Python, where the other engines are based on Go and Rust. So there's a little bit of technical stuff going on there.
So how this is, let me talk through it at a really high level. Yeah, thank you, Dave, for that. Yeah, so Ching, yeah, we want to have that in, but
Yep. It's a core requirement of the product going forward.
but some of these folks, yeah. So how this works, how we record an active cluster that's using it. When you install OpenEBS, when that CSI, when the driver starts for the engine, 24 hours after it starts, so once the system's been running for a day, so we're not counting the install, uninstall, flip-flop. After a day, at that point, it starts sending just a I'm alive ping. Just sends a ping each day to say, hey, I'm doing something, I'm alive. And so that then gives us, if we see that cluster that's pinging during the month, then that gives us a MAC, or monthly active cluster. So it's, I come from the web world, so we used to, monthly active users. And so, for example, in June, the actives that we had was about 1,000 clusters pinging at least once. And we know that the lifetime cluster installations is about 3,800, meaning that the ones that we've seen since January this year would be about 3,800 of those. So there's 800 new during that time. And our engines, I'm sure these numbers are, if anything, they're underreported, because there are certain cases where we can't record things, but they're not overreported at all. So since January this year, about 162,000 clusters were installed with one of the OpenEBS engines. And again, I can't count if people hadn't upgraded from the old version to this one to the newer version, then I can't. We don't have them in our counts yet. Okay, so that's the analytics. I know there have been questions before about the accuracy of the analytics, but that's where we're at, and I can move on unless anyone wants to ask any questions.
And I would just like to add one point here, which is you can see like HostPath, right? Due to its simplicity, there is like much more adoption as compared to the other engines. And one of the other reasons for this is HostPath is today an integral part of the vanilla or native replicated product as well as K3s. So K0s. So that's also one more reason, because whenever a user installs either replicated stack or K0s stack, they get HostPath by default. So that's also like one of the reasons for the higher adoption numbers.
Okay, I'm just going to move on. Thank you, Vishnu. I'm going to pass over to you, Vishnu, to talk about the code contributions from the community and roadmap as well.
Thanks, Ed. So myself, Vishnu, I'm one of the maintainers of OpenEBS. I worked as a part of Metadata earlier, and then now I work as one of the engineering leaders in Data Core. So I'm based out of Bangalore. yeah, coming back to the code contributions, right, from the community. Yeah, so the Datacore has always been the primary sponsor for the OpenEBS projects. So you can see the numbers, they speak for themselves. I think we are on a way to increase the contributions from the external contributors as well. So in the last 12 months, so the numbers are slowly increasing, the contributions are slowly increasing. So these contributions mainly, we try to capture on 3 metrics. One is how many issues have been raised by the community folks, how many commits and pull requests have been raised by them, and also like how many times they have really commented on these pull requests and issues. So the numbers are slowly like going up. At the moment, Mayastore is slowly getting more traction in the recent past. We are seeing like a lot of issues on the being reported on GitHub and as well as our Slack channels. So one thing that will not be visible here is the responses or the activity on the Kubernetes Slack channel, where we have a dedicated channel for OpenEBS. So that's another area where we get most of the requirements from our user base. So yeah, the numbers might seem a bit less at the moment, but we are definitely, I mean, trying to make it or trying to make our project easy for external users to contribute in the future. Any questions on this slide here by anyone?
Oh, just in the interest of time, Vishnu, I'll move forward.
Yep.
Sure. Yep. Yeah. So here on the roadmap slide, right? Again, I want to state that in the past couple of years, majority of the focus from the Datacore has been on building and solidifying the replicated engine Mayastore. So one of the reasons for that has also been that we wanted Mayastore to be used as an alternative for our past replicated engines like CStore and Jiva. So in this roadmap slide, like whatever we see, I just tried to kind of segregate them into completed, ongoing, and planned. But again, this is not kind of a built-in stone roadmap. There are many other feature requests which come ad hoc from the user community based on GitHub issues and Slack channels, which are not very big ticket items. So, but they also get addressed, especially on the local PV engines. If you see, like there are lots of PRs and issues raised by the community, which we keep addressing as well. So here, mainly focusing on
Vishnu,
the big ticket roadmap items.
Sorry, Vishnu, I'm just going to jump in and say, like, we've got 5 minutes to go. It feels like I know that people will want to talk through this. So so tag storage, maybe the next time we talk, we can talk more about some of the, we can spend some more time on some of these capabilities, because I know once we get started on this, it'll be another hour because it's fun. So if you're okay, is it okay with everyone? I'll just move on really quickly and just spend 1 minute on kind of stuff that we know that we need help with in the future.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
And also, like the roadmap, can you also, it's not clear to me, is that those are all for Mayastore, not for other engines?
So in the first 2 columns, right, in the planned and ongoing, we are working on Mayastore as well as the local engines.
Yes, it might be good if you actually clarify which.
The local
you have so many engines, right? So I'm not sure which. So maybe next time when you show this one, add a little more details on.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right,
Sure.
Shing. And that's one of the suggestions that we've had previously, is to make sure there's the roadmap covers all of the engines and to be able to call out which one it's for. And you're absolutely right.
We realized that in the previous meeting that slide is a little difficult to pass because you don't see the locals in the Mayastore. Sorry about that, Shing.
No problem.
So I'm just going to finish on this quickly. This is a CNCF meeting, so I don't want to talk about commercial offerings at all. But just to be really clear, the major sponsoring company, Datacore, we're making sure the commercial offering doesn't rely on data core controlling the project, and it doesn't have the word OpenEBS in it. And it's still a work in progress. We're still working on it, but there is agreement that that's what needs to happen. So we're working on that. And I'm talking with Josh Burkus from the TagCS in particular about that. Community contributors and maintainers, we do want to lift this up. There is no, Dave Brace is the one maintainer who's non-data core, but he used to be data core. The rest of them, especially as we rebooted the project and did a lot of work, the maintainers are all data core employees. They don't have to be. Anyone can become a maintainer. And we know that going from sandbox to incubation, that's one of those, that community side of it, and having more diversity in our maintainers is an important thing that we need to do. We may come back to you to Tag Storage and ask for help with that, because we're not experts. You know, as I talk to these guys about, these guys are not community managers, or at least no one comes from that. It's all authentic, the engagement they do, but you know, we may need to get more help with that.
Ed, raw file is also non-data core, just to clarify, is a core part of the project.
Yeah, good point, Dave. Thank you. We know there's various areas of the project, like documentation, which we know that you can be a little bit embarrassed of it. If you're not embarrassed of the stuff you're shipping, then you're shipping too late anyway. We do want to come back to and talk about our path to incubation graduation, and we realize that there are different tags and SIGs inside CNCF that specialize in different areas that we'll engage with. But after we get into Sandbox, we're going to come back and start with Tag Storage and get some help. One thing I wanted to point out, one thing is about our community meeting. So we're having our first community meeting, I think, in a long time, next week. The other thing that we do though, I'm going to stop sharing this, and I want to show you something. We're making a commitment to transparent governance of the project. And so one thing we started doing like 3 months ago in May, if you can see my screen here, is all of our maintainer meetings, we have them once a week, and we publish these in our GitHub as well. So you can see something like June 12. We don't always stick to the agenda, but we capture everything in here. Most of these ones too, for these different engines, we're capturing the number of open issues that we've got, and if we're making progress on them and everything else. So we recognize, again, we're not perfect, but we're recognizing that having that transparency for how decisions are made is really important. It's something you can't just turn on like that. So we've been doing this for the last 2 months. Anyway, that's one of the things that we're doing. So that's on our discussions group. And that takes a lot of work.
Yeah. It's awesome though. Lots of good progress.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Gosh, we're 1 minute over, but if anyone's got any questions, we're welcome to answer them.
Thank you for a great presentation and taking all the questions. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. Unless there are any other questions, I think we can close the call.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.